Hello, and welcome to a conversation on the Daily Bern. I'm your host, Eric Miller, joined today by an awesome progressive from the great state of New York, Maria Ordoñez. How you doing, Maria?
Hi, Eric. I'm doing well. It's awesome to be here. I love that song in the beginning. It sounds
Right?
so like
Mm,
it excites me. Yeah.
right? It's a little aggressive, but I love it. I love it. So Maria is running for New York City Council District 7, and we'll talk about that and so forth. But I just wanted to share something a little bit funny. You and I had originally scheduled for January 6th. And obviously that's when the Republican terrorists attacked the Capitol and so forth, right? And, I think I messaged you in the middle of the day. I was like, I don't think anyone's going to be paying attention to us today. And then without thinking of it, we rescheduled it for Inauguration Day. And
Right.
then that day came and I was like, hey, Maria, I don't think people will be paying attention to us today. And then finally we found the date. So it's nice to finally connect with you.
Yeah. Glad to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's New York City Council District 7 that you're running for, which is like Manhattan to Washington Heights and so forth. And I want to ask about that. Grassroots campaign, no corporate PACs. So it's MariaOrdonez.nyc. She needs our time. She needs our money. I'll mention that a million times and pull up the site. But, just kind of going back to the beginning, like what animated you politically initially, maybe as a kid and so forth, and then what inspired you to run for city council now?
Yeah, so I am a lifelong resident of West Harlem. So our district spans from the part of the other Upper West Side, basically all of West Harlem and part of Washington Heights. I'm a lifelong resident of West Harlem. I grew up in 3333 Broadway, the largest residential complex in the district and one of the largest in the city. And growing up, I've seen the gentrification that Columbia University, an elite institution, has caused on working class communities like West Harlem. I've seen the displacement that they've caused. I've seen how they've taken advantage of working people and, for their profit. And, growing up, seeing that and seeing our community be ignored. They are constantly ignored at the local level, the state level, the federal level. I saw a need for someone from the community to stand up. I did not see that in my race for city council. So I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to run and I'm going to build a movement. And similar to what I saw with the Bernie Sanders campaign, I was an organizer in the 2020 campaign, and we organized across Congressional District 13, basically all of Northern Manhattan. And we organized phone banks, barnstorms, and tabling, all that good stuff. And we saw that people care about these issues that really matter to them most. We saw the change that we can create when we mobilize people around issues that, seem so small, but if we were to actually address them, we make a difference in people's lives. So that inspired me, seeing the movement we can create, seeing the necessity in our communities, seeing the change we can create together. That inspired me to run for office because, I know we can create change. I'm the youngest woman to be running for office, and we're building a movement or building change in every single corner of the district.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. And, in your 2020 campaigning for Bernie, when you're not, that was, you could do that physically to some extent at the beginning of the year, pre-pandemic, right? And, talk about that. You said that you didn't feel like your constituency, your neighborhood, that you were being anything other than ignored, right? So how was the reception when you were knocking on doors and hearing people talk about their issues?
Yeah. So, when we canvassed for Bernie, we used to knock on doors, and NYCHA and Northern Manhattan, you have a lot of like NYCHA complexes. So when we knocked on doors, what we heard was people saying, "Oh, you're the first person to show up and actually talk to us and like listen to us." And
Right.
now with my campaign for city council, we're doing the same thing. We're going to people who live in NYCHA. We're having these conversations. Of course, like we're not knocking on doors because it's not safe because of COVID, but we're at the lobbies, we're talking to them, and it's the same thing. Elected officials don't show up, they don't care, they leave certain communities out of the picture because they don't want them to be that voice. One of the things that I really believe in my campaign is co-governing and co-legislating with our communities. I want them to be part of the governing process. I want them to be part of the decision-making table, and that's how we're actually going to pass legislation that will truly reflect our communities and their
Oh,
needs.
that's great. That's great. So you can canvass in lobbies, like you just mentioned. It's not going door to door, but you can set up a table at a lobby. That's an effective way to canvas. Have you been doing that?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things we've been doing is like door hanging, and while people are door hanging, I'm at the lobby, saying hi to people as they walk in, as they take the elevator. It's really easy to do in like more working class communities because we don't have like so many like doormans and stuff like that, and it really shows like so many issues are going on at the same time, where we're not responding to like a broken door. Some of the night shows that we went to, like we had a table there was a broken door and it was so cold. But night show residents were resigned to that broken door. I asked the lady and I told her, so what's going on with the door? She said, it's broken, we're not going to do anything. So that's what this political environment has cost on so many people, a sense of resignation, like they don't deserve more. But it's about empowering these people and empowering these communities to ask for more, to know that they deserve more and that they deserve to live in dignified places.
Ah, amazing. Yeah, since we're talking about that, I know housing as a human right is part of your platform, and renters' rights, undocumented people getting exploited by landlords and so forth. I'm sure that's all baked into that. Can you talk about what that looks like and what you're hoping to do on city council to remedy some of those things, if not all of them?
Yeah, so at the city council, we have a power to deal with land use, to deal with affordability. One of the most important things that I really care about and for my community is ensuring that we have truly affordable housing for every single New Yorker, especially working class New Yorkers. Like in the working class communities, like in Washington Heights and West Harlem. And what we need to do is transform our mandatory inclusionary housing program. It doesn't, that program, all it does is incentivize private developers, incentivize people who want to come and build luxury homes on the excuse that they're going to create affordable housing, when it really doesn't do that. It just creates tax breaks and incentivize them through funding them for reasons that don't actually support anyone's well-being. What we need to do is actually have forms of social housing, forms of community land trusts, forms of more public housing, where we use public land to actually create public housing and ensure that that stays affordable for every New Yorker. And when we talk about affordability and we measure that, we need to move away from the area median income and look into holistic ways of measuring affordability for every New Yorker. So we no longer have to look at averages that are distorted because there are wealthier pockets in the neighborhood and there are more working class, and then when combined don't make sense. So I will advocate to ensure there's truly affordable housing in all neighborhoods, that we are fighting for social housing, community land trusts, that we are centering our communities first. And when we look at elite institutions like Columbia, we ensure that they're responding back to our community and giving back to our community, not just taking away. And that means that whenever they expand, whenever they create new development, any and all new development from Columbia needs to ensure affordability, needs to ensure affordable housing for New Yorkers in that area, which is one of the issues. They continue to expand, but don't give back. And it's time that they give back. It's time that we give back to our communities and ensure that they can thrive where they are.
Here, here. Boy, you probably will not be surprised to find out. I've been having a lot of city council candidates on lately, and it's a very common thing. What you talked about, real estate developments and lobbyists, paying for whatever donations and so forth, right? Bribes, straight up bribes. And then getting abatements. Like you said, it incentivizes the wrong type of development and so forth. And I think almost to a guest, everyone that I've had on that's running for city council anywhere has told me that as an issue. So it's it's ubiquitous, right? And we need people like Maria on city councils in New York City and my other guests everywhere, to fight back against this, right? It's not just at a federal level that money influences this gentrification and so forth happens, and long-term abatements. It all happens at the local level. So Maria is a grassroots candidate. I'm going to say your website again, MariaOrdonez.nyc. In fact, let me pull it up. It's got a nice little picture there. If I can do that. I thought I could. There we go. I think I've done this before. So yeah, MariaOrdonez.nyc. You can volunteer there. You can donate there, like her social, share her posts, and so forth. Volunteer is one of the key things. Talk about how people can volunteer for you.
Yeah, so you can go to www.MariaOrdonez.nyc, click volunteer there, and once you click on that button, like sign up for anything you like, or let us know what you're interested in. You're interested in doing policy, phone banking, tabling, door hanging, whatever it is. We will love to have you be part of our movement. And we're people powered, so as many people can join us, we'd be really grateful to continue to build this movement so we can make this happen.
Here. MariaOrdonez.nyc is the website. So yeah, I'll mention that again before we go. But yeah, and races like yours, campaigns like yours, $10, $20 makes a huge difference, right? Especially the earlier you can donate, the more impact it has in your campaign. So you can buy those door hangers and so forth, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, so it didn't begin and end with Trump. There's a lot of candidates out there that need our help, and Maria is one of them. Let's talk a little bit about COVID. About COVID impact in your district. Talk about opportunities for relief. What would you hope to do? When you make it into city council to provide relief, assist your constituents, and so forth, as it relates to COVID.
Yeah, so the communities in northern Manhattan have been impacted the most by, along with other communities like in Queens and other districts. But in Manhattan specifically, when you look at this borough, northern Manhattan has been impacted the most by the pandemic. So what we need to do, and what I commit to doing as a future council member, is ensuring that we address food insecurity. Food insecurity is not something that just happened now with the pandemic. It's something that's been, that existed before, but the pandemic just brought it to light. Food insecurity is a systematic issue that disproportionately affects people of color. So the first thing we need to do is support mutual aid networks. We need to ensure that we have a food voucher program for students who go to CUNY. Most of the students who attend CUNY are working class students who are dealing with the negative effects of the pandemic. Right. On top of that, we need to ensure that we're providing, as an office, I want to be a place and a resource for people. So I want to open up the office as a place where people can come in and organize. I will make sure that we have a community fridge outside. And then, if you feel like you need to organize, you need to unionize, you come into the office as an organizing space. That's one of the things that I think is very unique about having an office. Right now with the pandemic, you can't really have that. But I know, like, every elected official has an office, but it's always about the same thing, constituent services, and that's good and necessary. But we also need to give people the tools and resources necessary to be, to be leaders, to be people who advocate for themselves. And, going back to the situation with NYCHA, so they know that they can also advocate to fix that door. They know that they can also advocate for that hot water, for the heat. And for me, it's about building leaders. And throughout the pandemic, I think that's what we need the most: build leaders in our community, empower people. And on top of that, and another thing that has been really critical and important in our community has been education. So I will commit to fully funding our public schools, and that means ensuring that every single student, no matter in what zip code you live in, has access to quality education. So no matter where you are, you can have access to after school programs. You have access to a union nurse, access to a social worker, to a library. Not every school has access to that because they don't have enough space, or, school doesn't have enough funding. And at the same time, we need to ensure that we're teaching the history that we need in schools, and that we're ready for situations like the pandemic. So we have universal childcare, and every single child has access to the internet, has access to a tablet or a phone or whatever it is, but can learn. And, when we address those issues, and there are many more, but when we start addressing those issues, we will start helping people thrive. We will start helping, students be more successful. We will start, addressing these small things that will help our families. Think about, a job. If you think about other things that they shouldn't be, we shouldn't be thinking about how to put food on the table when we're one of the richest cities and richest countries in the world. We should be thinking about what I want to study or what school I want to go to, this and that. But it shouldn't be about these small things. And being a rich city, that should never be a scenario in which a
Yeah.
family sees themselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what, the first half of that you said, I almost wanted to cry, because that's the not me us thing, right? You're talking about, opening the People's House for to animate the next activist, the next organizer, right? They shouldn't necessarily be looking to their city hall to fix every little problem. They can organize and do it themselves to some extent, right? So that's, I mean, what better advocate could you have, in the city council than someone like Maria, right? I'm assuming you're not going to get into office and start taking like giant checks from Raytheon or Merck or ExxonMobil or anything, correct?
Of course not. Of course not.
Right.
It's about people and we're people led. And like you said, it's not me us. It's not me us.
Yeah, so that's amazing. That's really wonderful. Like that's the one great thing. I've been having all these guests and all these candidates on, and you can tell when someone is authentic about the causes, right? Like you have a real drive because you care, versus someone who's in a stuffed suit who's being paid to say regurgitate talking points. There is a clear difference, right? And I think people are wising up to it. Before I ask a few more policy things, so is this the first race you've run? Like, what have you learned? Like, how's it feel to be a candidate and be neck deep in this stuff?
Yeah, this is the first time I'm running for office. I'm 21, so I wouldn't have ran before. It's a really unique experience, and what I will say is that people constantly tell people you're not ready, you're too young, or you're a woman, or you're Latina, you're a woman of color, you can't do this, and that's because they don't want to see people, run for office. They don't want to see the change you can create when you run for office. One of the things that I constantly tell people who ask me, I want to run for office too, and I'm young. I never thought someone like you could do this. What I tell them is that you should be able to run for office, and running to show everyone that you can, that the impossible is in fact possible. Running for office is not about who you are, your age, your gender, how you identify, your religion, whatever. It's not about that. It's about, standing up for your community. It's about representing the interests of your community and fighting for them and making sure you're building that not me us movement. I actually truly believe in that you can build a not me us movement by empowering people around you. And that's how you build a people's movement and a people powered grassroots campaign that does not have to rely on real estate, does not have to rely on elite institutions or corporate interests, does not have to rely on the establishment, but relies on the people. Because at the end of the day, who goes out and vote is not those corporate interests. It's the people. It's the people who have that one vote, but it's very powerful because it can make the difference. And, I really believe that, the moment that person who works behind a cash register knows and has if feels empowered to run for office, that's the moment democracy is finally working for us. Right now, people don't feel empowered. They don't feel energized. So they need to be motivated, and they need to be motivated to come out and be leaders. And the moment we have that, we have a true democracy, because democracy is about, participatory politics. Everyone is involved. Everyone's a leader. And that's the movement I seek to create.
Awesome. MariaOrdonez.nyc. Go send her a donation, volunteer. I mean, just amazing. 21. Just amazing. So inspiring. Thank you for your passion and fire and, clear vision and principledness. It's just so wonderful and refreshing. Let me just ask one or two more sort of policy questions. I know one thing that I thought was interesting on your site, and I don't see it on every site, was animal rights. You have animal rights specifically broken out on your site. Talk about that. That's not something you see on every site. You should see it on every site, of course.
Yeah, so I have two dogs that you might have heard throughout this interview, because there's a time when they go for a walk, Jake and Maggie, and they're lovely. And even if I didn't have dogs, one of the most important things that I've seen in the city of New York is that dogs can truly make a difference in anyone's lives. So just like any being has rights, so do animals, so do pets, and they should have rights too. And that means protecting them with legal rights, protecting them with, making sure that they're not facing abuses. And at the same time, we also have to look at there's a couple of bills that I mentioned in that platform. One of them being making sure that homeless shelters allow people to have pets. Different public houses, public units, making sure that they allow people to have pets. One of the things that was very interesting when we were doing research about animal rights and everything. We found that was not a reality. People could not have pets at their homes. It's really just I couldn't believe it, because dogs are like beings, are like parts of your family. So making sure that people can have companions, it's really important. Making sure that we protect our rights, it's really important. Making sure that there are no animal rights violations, that we're not using live animals in public schools, it's extremely important. We need to be a city that not just cares about human rights, but also cares about animal rights. And in the city council, I will make sure to advocate for them.
That's great. Let's talk about criminal justice reform, as you call it, I think on your website, humane criminal justice reform. What would you hope to do in that space, working from the city council?
Yeah, so criminal justice is something that I am personally passionate about. As a woman of color growing up in West Harlem, you actually you see the police outside, and one of the things that you come to realize as you grow up is that you are targeted because of the color of your skin. And I know that firsthand because I have two brothers. They're both men of color, and they've been stopped by the police. My oldest brother, he's been stopped for no good reason, or he had to go to school where there were metal detectors, and he got searched because his belt had a piece of metal. So that just creates anxiety in a child's mind. That creates a bad environment for education. It creates a bad environment in our communities. And what we need to do is defund the NYPD by at least $1 billion and bring that money into our communities. I believe we need to start with $1 billion, but we need to cut down further. And those $1 billion will go into mental health services, will go into education, will go into housing, will go into the root of the causes of what creates poverty, what creates addiction, what creates all of these issues that we then criminalize people for. I believe that we need to lead our criminal justice system through restorative justice. We need to lead with community-led solutions. The people who are supposed to be taking care of ourselves are the people in our community, are the social workers. There's no reason why when we have a mental health crisis situation, a police needs to show up, the NYPD is not need to show up. What needs to show up are the mental health providers. What needs to show up are the social workers. And we deal with homeless people in the trains, and I've seen that often, the train stations at midnight, the police goes in and they take out the homeless people, and it's a very intimidating situation, and it feels weird, and there's no right way to intervene or what to do. And what needs to happen there is not use violence. We don't need to use violence or criminalize people or handcuff them for being homeless. What we need to do is provide them with shelters. We need to provide them with a place to live, with education, of a job, with food, all these things that are so basic, but at the same time will make a difference. And there's so many things that need to be done, like taking police out of hospitals, taking police out of schools. And the moment we have that in place, we will have a community that is community led. It's not be intimidated because of the police. It's not being criminalized because of their color of skin, because of their immigration status, or if they can speak English or Spanish. We would have a community that can take care of itself.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious, at the city council level, like police unions is one of those, it sort of takes an adversarial position to candidates such as yourself, progressives and so forth, right? Just I think from lack of understanding, is that what is the current state of the race? Is there an incumbent that that is, aligned more with the police unions? Who else is in the race? Like, what's the horse race of your candidacy at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm running in this Council District 7 in Manhattan. It is an open seat, so that means that the current council member is term limited. But we do have 13, well, with me, 12 other people. So me and 12 other people are running.
Right.
So it's a very packed race. But what I will say is that I'm the only candidate, the only young woman of color from the district, born and raised in the district, that is not attached to the establishment, that is not taking real estate money, that is not corporate money, and that is here because of people power. My whole campaign has been, people power. Our endorsements from the New York Progressive Action Network and Our Revolution, all of them have been about, groups that believe in our movement, and they're movement groups that see what we're doing and what we're building, and they believe in it. We're not being funded by any corporate interests, and we're not actively working with any like party establishment, because we believe that we can make this happen with the people. And I truly, truly believe that at the end of the day, we can win and we can make this happen because we're talking to the voters, and who has the power at the end of the day is the voters. And, I think we can make this happen.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I bet you the constituents that you, like when we were talking about, you canvassing for Bernie, I can't imagine someone not seeing you and being, someone seeing you and not being moved by your message, right? And your energy and your people-centered platform and all that stuff, right? You're not a lobbyist shill. You're in the lobby waiting for them on a cold ass day to say hello and, bump their elbows or whatever, right? I mean, that's amazing. And, hopefully those other 12 will kind of split the vote and so forth. So, this is a totally winnable race because of the way you just described it. So, again, MariaOrdonez.nyc, please go volunteer, send some text, make some phone calls, send some money, whatever you can, right? Share this video, like her socials, share her socials, right? There's a million ways you can get the word out. If you know anybody in New York and Manhattan, let them know. When is the election day?
So the election's on June 22nd, 2021.
Okay. Is there early voting like in May?
There is early voting like a week before. So yeah, a week before early voting, and the primary date's June 22nd.
Excellent. June 22nd. So MariaOrdonez.nyc. I'd love to have you come back maybe in May to get out the vote a little bit, just as before election day. So if you'll come back, I would love to have you. Yeah. I mean, but before we go this time, is there anything that you want to focus on that we didn't hit on? There's a million policy topics we could talk about. Anything you want to hit on before we go?
I think we pretty much cover the main topics, the main policy points. The one thing I will say, like I said before, is to everyone who's hearing, if you ever want to run for office, you should do it. No one should ever tell you no. I've heard no way too many times, and we still made it this far. I'm the youngest woman running for office. I am the youngest candidate in New York City history to ever max out on matching funds. So we're making history every step of the way, and we're showing that you can actually do this. It's very possible. So I invite you to join us, to join our movement. Like Eric said, go to MariaOrdonez.nyc, join us, click volunteer, and sign up for whatever you like. And we're building this movement together. It's only possible with you.
Ah, that's so great. Yeah, and like you said, it's an entry so high that working class people, and disproportionately people of color can't run for office, right? Because you have to work a 9 to 5 and a second job and so forth. So you're 1,000% right. Godspeed, man. That's amazing. So may you inspire anyone else running behind you. It's just incredible. So
thank you so much here.
Yeah, MariaOrdonez.nyc. Like I said, go make a donation, and please come back in May and we can talk a little bit more, and we'll slag the other 12 when you come back in May.
Absolutely. We're gonna win.
All right, cool. Thank you, Maria. Stay safe. Bye.